Hello everybody, CVH here with another deck tech for BetweenTheLanes.net. Today, as you can see, we're going over an assassin deck, which I have named Milhouse Assassin, because I would like to emphasize that I did not come up with the list for this deck. This isn't the original list that was sent to me, but it is a deck that was created by CoreyMilhouse's, a frequent guest on my stream. You could probably hear him in the Skype call a lot. He's been playing this all on the ladder a lot more than I did, even though I was the one streaming it when you might have seen it. It did get me on a pretty fantastic win rate from around Legend 40 to Legend 8. I think maybe I lost 4 games to well over 10. It was a really great win rate. While I did roll high a little bit, I'm sure, on like the prophecies, for example. I wanted to go over this deck because I feel like it has real potential in the metagame. Definitely a good concept by CoreyMilhouse. He called it the Prophecy Assassin. It's pretty much an aggro burn deck, but I just call it Milhouse Assassin because it is his version of the this class, basically. I haven't really seen anything completely similar. Even the deck I got #1 Legend with that was Assassin was very different. So without much further ado, I also want to mention that he did actually win the, I believe it was the TES Champion Series. It was a tournament on Saturday, this past Saturday. He said he 2-0'd everybody, and this was one of his decks, and I'm pretty sure this is the only deck he actually played. He might have weaved in an Archer game here or there, but he said he had a lot of success in the ladder. I had success in the ladder with it, he obviously had a lot of success in the tournament with it. So without further ado, I'm going to go up the curve as usual and explain all the card choices, because some of them look pretty funky. I completely understand if you look at this list and say to yourself, this probably shouldn't work, there's no way this is right, because those are the exact same reactions that I had when I was first looking at the list. So, Brutal Ashlander, this is one of the more, I guess obvious card choices. This is not something that you would be surprised about. Some of them are. Brutal Ashlander is not. Fantastic 1-drop, it's an aggro burn deck. Definitely what the deck wants to be playing. Ungolem, very similar. It's an aggressively statted 1-drop, which might not live for a while, but it will possibly get the 2 damage in, and then if you draw those Brotherhood Assassins any later in the game, you're just going to be really happy about it. So Daring Cutpurse is the main aggressive 2-drop in the deck. Of course, we used to have Murkwater Savage. There we go. That was the, when this was a 2-drop, obviously Corey had it as a 3-of in the deck, but we had to change some things around because by the time I had decided to test this deck out, it was already nerfed to a 3-drop. Daring Cupper is still fantastic, obviously. Fighter's Guild Recruit, also fantastic, helps you get some answers to guards, which there aren't really a ton of in this deck. Worth noting that I did have a Territorial Viper and a 3rd Ice Spike in there. I took them out for the Crushing Blows, but that was an additional answer to the guard. Ice Spike definitely can be a 3-of. But this sort of goes into the burn strategy, right? So let's talk about that. Basically, this deck wants to get on the board very early with its 1 and 2 drops and 3 drops, hit your opponent for a lot. Some of the 2 drops and 3 drops are a little resilient, like the Ward Crafter and the Sean Avenger's 4-drop, which is resilient. But on the whole, after a while, your opponent's probably going to be able to stabilize the board, and then you rely on the massive amount of burn in the deck. And it's doubly true for the fact that a lot of them are prophecies, so your opponent has to get aggressive eventually if they want to actually win the game themselves. They can't just stall indefinitely. And if they do get aggressive, they run the risk of simply dying to burn on their own turn. So, Ice Spike fits into the strategy perfectly, also cycles deeper into the deck for more burn. Shrieking Harpy, another solid 2-drop, can protect you from a lot of things. This deck actually has a ton of prophecies. I'm pretty sure... Yeah, this is just a ton of prophecies. I think it's like 28 or something insane. Might be a little overstating it, but Shrieking Harpy is another fantastic prophecy. Fine to play on turn 2, can help you outrace your other aggressive opponents. Ward Crafter was not in the original list, but I do like it now because we have the extra 2-drop slot thanks to Savage being nerfed. Helps you make your cut bursts a little more resilient. And of course, playing it on 2, it's at worst a 2-1 with Ward, which is fine against all the other 2-drops as long as they aren't named Murkwater Witch. This card hurts against this deck, not gonna lie. But it's this deck is also pretty good against the mid-range Archer in general, which is one of the main decks that run the Witch, so you have that going for you at least. Black Sap Protector, yet another prophecy. Fantastic, 3-drop 3/3, good to protect your Daring Cutpurse on curve. That's pretty much the only reason you're really happy about playing it on 3. There's better 3-drops on curve, but fantastic prophecy can really turn a game around. Crushing Blow, I did want to put this in the deck. Most of the time you will see me with the aforementioned changes of the Viper and the 3rd Ice Spike if you go back and watch the VOD of that particular stream, but I definitely know I wanted to put this in the deck, did not know what to cut. I think I cut 2 correct things for it, but it could easily be a 3-of, so if you're missing any one single card in this list, the first thing I would probably just slam in here is another Crushing Blow. You really can't go wrong. And beyond that, a 3rd Ice Spike could just as easily come back into the list. Daggerfall Mage, it's not the most aggressive card, I probably use the Tome from its effect maybe once, but the fact that it's resilient because of the ward makes it good enough in my opinion. Corey really likes this card a lot more than I do too. I don't really like to trade with this deck at all, so I mean, a lot of the benefit you get from the ward is just the fact that this can't be firebolted and executes kind of a rarity. Dune Smuggler goes along perfectly with the Daring Cutbursts, and he did say he was testing the Dune Stalker as well for a while, which is worth noting because it is also a prophecy, but the Dune Smugglers +1/+1 turned out to be more relevant in more games. I've only played it with the Dune Smugglers, but they've been fantastic so far. House Kinsman, definitely what this deck wants to be doing. This is like the perfect 3-drop because it's going to get in for 3 damage, probably multiple times, make your opponent waste an attack or removal on it, and then it falls right into the burn strategy. This is just like another crushing blow on a body, basically. And of course it heals you too, which is relevant in the way that Ransack is relevant in the aggressive mirror matches. So you have Deshaun Avenger, which is kind of a slow card, but it's one of the best cards against decks like Control Mage. So if you're playing a lot of those decks and you want to make this the kind of mediocre matchup better, a third Deshaun Avenger would be good, just because it's very, very hard to deal with. It'll get in there for a lot of hits and requires almost all the time. It requires 2 cards to kill it, either silence and removal, or 2 removal, or many attacks when they would be rather just be attacking your face to try to counter swing. Lightning Bolt, perfect card for the deck, can't really talk too much about it. 4 damage, Prophecy, fine. Werebat, also pretty obvious. 4/3, it's great. I mean, it's kind of resilient. It's not kind of like fragile against something like Crushing Blow. So you don't really like this card on curve against a control deck, but it's perfectly fine against an aggressive deck because if it hits for 4, it's basically a swing of 8 life total because they're going to try to race you in an opposite lane more than likely. And of course, if you get it on a Prophecy, it's just insane against an aggressive deck because that's going to swing the game around without you having to even worry about what they have on the board. Royal Sage is a 2-of. It's like, you could think of it kind of as inconsistent, and a lot of the keywords don't really matter, but if you're ahead on board and you already have like 3 things, including the Sage even, you drop this, get a ward, and like a lethal to clear a guard. Like, this card can just be insane. And it's never really bad, because at worst it's a 4-drop 4/4, which is already like comparable to the Werebat if you don't need the drain effect. It's just fine. Speaking of 4/4s, this deck really likes having 4 attack, by the way. Cliff Racer, 4/4 charge. This card has more value than commonly run 5-drops like Leaf Lurker and even Soul Rest Marshal in the mid-range Archer decks, because unlike those decks, this doesn't really want to care. This deck doesn't really care about playing for the board. So like, these cards generate huge amounts of value and clear threats. They could be good in this deck, but more often than not, you just want to hit your opponent for 4 damage and then make them waste time dealing with this threat while you burn them out with other cards. And Soul Rest, you're not really playing too many high-value cards that you'd really benefit from getting like reduced in this deck, and you occasionally do run out of a hand and just have to burn them out. So, not immediate damage, and Cliff Racer is immediate damage, and it's pretty large too. Like, this is a lot of damage just getting in there. A lot of the times it'll hit for 8 or even 12 damage before they can really clear it easily. So Fate Weaver and Ransack should be talked about together. They're kind of the funkier choices. They're definitely the first things I wanted to cut when I saw the list, but they really do play into the amount of prophecies you have. I actually forgot the actual numbers, so let's go through and count. We have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Alright, so only 24 prophecies. But the Fate Weaver, it is Cycle. I wanted to try Elusive Schemer instead, but it just doesn't make sense after actually playing the list. I know this is a change you're probably going to want to make. But you gotta believe with the Fate Weaver. It doesn't cost that much more. You don't get the benefit of the 0-cost Elusive Schemer at all, but you do get the benefit of a 0-cost whatever off of the top of your deck almost half the time, as we just counted, right? Because it's a 50-card deck, 24 prophecies. So this card, more often than not, is going to be at least reasonable. And if you ever get anything for free off of it, it's just insanity, especially on your opponent's turn. They're not prepared to hit 2 prophecies, both a 3/3 and, like, some other guy. Which doesn't seem that great because it's very overcosted for a 3/3, but the amount of damage that can turn around and put in your opponent's face unexpectedly really can't be overlooked. Ransack, deal 3, gain 3. I didn't like this card as much as Crushing Blow. I wanted to just snap cut the Ransacks for the Crushing Blow, but again, the fact that it's a prophecy is pretty insane. With these cards, you occasionally target minions, but more often than not, it's just going to go to your opponent's face, which obviously isn't great for 6, and you're going to probably want to draw this card least of all out of any card in your deck. But as a prophecy, it's fine, and I do think it's fine as a 3-of because it does hit your opponent for that 3 damage. I would like a 3rd Crushing Blow too, just to like max all their removal, but Ransack as a 3-of I think makes a little more sense than Ice Spike or Crushing Blow as a 3-of, having played the deck, and just the fact that you can get it off the Fate Weaver. Also, that 3 health shouldn't be, taken lightly, because you have this, the Werebat, and the, the House Kinsman. So that's actually a lot of heal that you don't expect this deck to be able to, play, because you expect it to play like an aggro burn deck, just, hitting your opponent and burning them out. But, a lot of your burn and a lot of your ways to deal damage also just give you a life advantage against the aggressive mirror matches, which can be pretty exciting. Tazcad the Pax Master is probably the most important legendary for the deck out of the 2 that this deck actually runs. You don't really have anything better to do with 1 card, 8 Magicka. Tazcad is basically where you want to be. It's resilient, it deals face damage, it'll probably just win you the game. Even if they are able to clear it, they have to use so many resources to do so that you'll just burn them out with the other cards. The only time this is ever bad is if they're blocking both lanes with some gigantic guard, but in that case, you have so much burn in your deck that you don't really need to be playing Tazcad in the first place. Almost never is the case. Tazcad is almost always perfectly fine. A lot of games do end before turn 8, but in the games that don't, Tazcad is the perfect card. So that's basically the list. As I mentioned, it has a lot of success on the ladder, getting the top 10, and after playing the deck enough and hearing Corey's stories of his conquests with the deck, I have to imagine this does have a place in the meta, which is, it's kind of not. You didn't expect Ransack to get top 10 Legend. I know I didn't expect to play at the top 10 Legend, but it happened, and the deck does work. I don't think it's in its final form yet, but I think it's getting closer. Hopefully you guys go out there and experiment with this deck. Hopefully you don't upset your opponents too much. Apparently it's a little upsetting to lose to. I can understand that getting Ransacked in the last rune or whatever for lethal is not the most fun ever, but deck's definitely very good if you like those aggressive strategies with a lot of synergy within the deck too, and a lot of really fun plays you didn't expect to be able to turn situations around, but the deck can get you back in the game very quickly through its prophecies. So if you like the profile, or the deck rather, if you do, be sure to check out BetweenTheLanes.net for more strategy articles, more deck text, whatever you want. And if you're on Between the Lanes, be sure to check out my YouTube channel for more videos. Do post highlights daily from the streams at twitch.tv/ImCVH, and tomorrow's highlight will probably be some games with the deck from its recent win rate, from its recent win streak on my stream, I guess you could say. So look forward to that. Hopefully you enjoyed. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time, guys.